When I was a kid, saying that you're a Palestinian was the equivalent of saying that you're a terrorist. That was all that Americans understood about it. And now it's so much more nuance in that conversation.
All right, welcome to the RevolYouTion. Guys, we're trying to interview folks and talk to folks that are trying to make a difference in this country and change the way that folks think. We've talked to people from all sorts of different backgrounds. We talked to a conservative organization that's trying to stop the National Guard from getting deployed in places they shouldn't be deployed. I love that organization. And now we're gonna talk to someone who's trying to make a difference by, in my opinion, and we'll talk to her about it, showing folks the real face of Muslims in America, instead of the demagoguery that you see all the time. So I love it, and I'm happy to welcome her here. Amani Al-Khatahtbeh, she's a media founder and analyst. Her website is muslimgirl.com and is often known as the Muslim Girl. So Amani, welcome.
Hey, Jang, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I found out a stunning fact about you that I'm gonna get to a little bit later, and it's the most important and interesting fact, but hold. I want everybody to know that you were selected as Forbes 30 under 30 in media for your work on muslimgirl.com. 25 most influential Muslim Americans by CNN. A little stunned by that. So before we get to talking with you, I wanna show that clip from CNN as context for this conversation. So let's watch that.
MuslimGirl.com was born out of my frustration from feeling completely alienated by the misrepresentation of Muslim women in the media. And so being as pissed off as I was, I did what any millennial would do. I took it to the internet. My experience as a Muslim woman in today's America looks like me walking down the street with my huge headphones on, blaring Biggie Smalls, only to get interrupted along my day by someone on the street shouting, "Hey, are you a part of ISIS?"
Okay, so Amani, let's start from the beginning, given that context. When did you start this and what was your intent in starting the website?
I started Muslim Girl when I was a teenager, and it came out of the frustration of not seeing a reflection of myself and the world around me growing up here in the States, especially post 9/11. I'm a born and raised Jersey girl, so this is the only home I've ever had. And 9/11 happened at a very early age. I was early in elementary school, and all of a sudden it was like overnight I was being told by society that I don't belong here, that I'm enemy number one. And it began this coming of age experience where I was growing up under the weight of media propaganda, trying to shove down my throat what the Muslim identity represents to them. And being told that, Muslim women are oppressed, they're voiceless. By the time I was 9 years old, we were already in 2 wars in the Middle East, most of which was, under the pretense of liberating Muslim women from these brown men having to go in there and save them. And, history repeats itself. We're seeing the same thing happen today. But for me, that just was not my experience as an American Muslim girl. So I felt it was necessary to create a platform where we can kind of reclaim that narrative and talk back. And I started this mainly as a blog where I can share my real life experiences. And then over time, more and more Muslim women contributed their experiences. And now it's become a real-time chronicle of the evolution of the American Muslim identity, during one of the most influential times for our religious community in modern history.
So now that leads to the amazing fact. Which city in New Jersey did you grow up in?
East Brunswick.
Damn. Okay, so I'm from East Brunswick, New Jersey as well. So that is a wild coincidence.
I actually can't believe it. East Brunswick is such a small town that what is that kind of, alignment?
Yeah, that is amazing that happened.
That's so funny.
Yeah. There's a couple other folks that are in media from East Brunswick. Jesse Eisenberg, who was in a lot of movies.
I actually went to high school with his little sister, who was the ba-da-ba-ba-ba girl. So,
yeah. Look at that. Okay. Yeah. We got Josh Miller that went to the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. But that is amazing. That's an amazing coincidence.
You're a Jersey boy, Jenk. Who knew?
Oh, for sure.
That explains so much.
Exactly. When you find out that I'm Turkish and from New Jersey, they go, oh, I get it. So
it's a double whammy.
oh, for sure. That's how you get this aggressive. So, I mean, I talk about it all the time. The billboards in Jersey that say "got hurt in Jersey.com."
Oh yeah,
that's Jersey life. So
I should add that to my website actually.
Yeah. So where's your family from originally?
My father is Jordanian and my mother is Palestinian. My mother's family is actually from a village called Deir Yassin, which has a lot of history. So my mom actually grew up here. I went to the same elementary school through high school as my mom, and my dad came here in the 80s, and they actually met here, and they had a little American immigrant love story.
Okay, all right, that's awesome. So, okay, let's talk about the evolution from when you were growing up, and I'll try to layer in my experience as well, right? When you were growing up to all the way to now, do you think that some people call it Islamophobia. I don't love that word. I think it's more just like hatred directed towards Muslims. Do you think that it's gotten worse, better, or has it gone up and down at different times?
It's definitely fluctuated, I would say. I think over the past 2 decades since 9/11, we've watched a lot of national Muslim organizations contribute a lot of resources, time, energy that were already scarce to really educating the American public and trying to convince Americans that we are just the same and to push back against these stereotypes that have alienated us. And because of those efforts, we saw, progress and improvement. But then all it takes is for, in my opinion, it was in 2016 or end of 2015 when Trump came on the scene and entered the presidential race and started introducing this idea of a Muslim ban for the first time, that it became apparent there has been a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment that was festering underneath the surface that wasn't necessarily healed. And because of that, we saw a surge in anti-Muslim hate crimes that rivaled and actually exceeded those of immediately post 9/11. Disproportionately targeting Muslim women wearing headscarves because obviously it's a visible marker, it's a walking target on our heads. And over time, we continue to see that fluctuation. I mean, right now, I think it's kind of been at an all-time high, unfortunately. We're kind of reduce, reuse, recycling all of the horrific propaganda talking points from post 9/11 for new political outcomes and new motives. So it's definitely a really bad time when it comes to anti-Muslim sentiment in this country.
So I'm not sure if you've seen this so far, but at the same time, Amani, I have a sense of hope I didn't have before. So the attacks on the Somali immigrants is terrible. And about 3 months ago or so, the propaganda against Muslims got put on hyperdrive. You started seeing a lot of the pro-Israel pundits just go, not just defend Israel, not just say attack Hamas, etc., but start to say it's the Muslims. Muslims are bad, etc. They hyped it up. But what's happened now is Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and now today Megyn Kelly, all saying, "Wait a minute, I think we might have gotten taught to hate Muslims so that we would help Israel attack their enemies." And after 9/11. The neocons, Israel First crowd wanted us to attack Iraq. Now they want us to attack Iran. And every time they want us to attack one of their neighbors, massive anti-Muslim propaganda pops up all over television, all over media, and from our politicians. But the fact that some of the leading figures in the right have now recognized that and called that out, I haven't seen anything that encouraging in a long time. And I was curious what your take on that is.
You're absolutely right. This is the first time in American history where the pro-Palestine human rights movement has become bipartisan. We've never seen that before. Usually it's been historically the pro-Israel sentiment that's been bipartisan. And we have sought the little empathy we were able to garner from the Democratic Party. But I think now, especially with the rise of the America First movement, people are recognizing, rightfully so, that Americans are being put on the back burner for the interests of foreign allies. And I think because of social media being so easily accessible, people are really seeing with their own eyes what their tax dollars are going to committing on the other side of the world, when we ourselves are not even accessing the type of privileges that we should be getting as Americans. So I think that it's because of that nationalistic sentiment that we're seeing that change happen. But that is also coupled with, I think, a lot of humanitarianism as well. I think there's the bottom line is that people do not like genocide and they don't want to see it committed on their watch. So that coupled with this political prism within our bipartisan system, seeing that really come to life in this new way where people are talking about Palestine for the first time, it's become a central point in the elections. I just saw that in California, they were asking all of these candidates, like, do you believe that what's happening in Palestine is a genocide? And I can tell you, growing up as a Palestinian girl in New Jersey, I personally never imagined seeing this happen in my lifetime. That's how significant of a contrast it is and how sharp of a change it's been. Because when I was a kid, saying that you're a Palestinian was the equivalent of saying that you're a terrorist. That was all that Americans understood about it. And now it's so much more nuanced in that conversation.
Yeah, 100%. I want to get back to that left that you're talking about and the independence in a second, because you're absolutely right, a mountain of difference, right? But one last thing on the right. So when I go to Muslim events these days, people are honestly gushing about Tucker Carlson, and because he's the one out there saying, I think we were lied to. I think that the Muslims are human beings and we shouldn't kill them, and that we shouldn't discriminate based on anybody's religion, etc. And people can't believe it. They can't believe that Tucker Carlson is saying that and defending Muslims. So, but I'm curious if that's just my experience, or are you seeing that in your community as well?
I've definitely been seeing that. Absolutely. I think for a lot of American Muslims, especially over the past 2 years, one of the most pressing issues for us, as well as for many Americans from different backgrounds, has been what's going on in Palestine. And so when an underrepresented and marginalized minority like American Muslims see major figureheads like Tucker Carlson actually speak about them in a way that defines them as human beings, as equals, it is such a breath of fresh air that it's garnered so much support and attention. I mean, I've also seen that kind of support happen for Candace Owens, for Nick Fuentes. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing in the long run, because these are people that have expressed that they see minorities and other communities as being inferior in many ways. So it can easily come back to bite such communities in the long run. But I think that for American Muslims, they're learning how to play politics, and they understand that you have to make allies where you can find them when it comes to really pushing the needle forward within this political game, this political system that is rigged against us. So I think that is in large part why a lot of people are moved by voices like Tucker Carlson and feel represented by them now.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between those four people, right? So Fuentes is generally, spoken out against every kind of race and religion and background in different ways. Although he does point out, yeah, we were propagandized about Muslims in particular, right? And I love what Candace says about Muslims. I don't love what she says about Jews, right? I think the whole conversation about Talmudic Jews and all that stuff is nonsense, right? So, and we can make that distinction, and there's nothing wrong with making that. Whereas Tucker and Megyn are way more mainstream, and they've never said anything against Jewish people. They're just saying, sorry, but it looks like Israel's profiting from this anti-Muslim propaganda, and we're gonna point it out. And that is an amazing development. Look, and I'm gonna go to the left in a sec, but my sense of it is, if Tucker ran against a standard corporate robot Democrat like Kamala Harris, he'd get like 80, 90% of the Muslim American vote. That's my sense of it.
Oh, 1000%, for sure.
Yeah, okay, now we don't have to run Kamala Harris if you're on the left and if you're a Democrat. And now let me give flowers to the left, right? The first politician I have ever seen that spoke about Palestinians as human beings was Bernie Sanders. And when I remember Bernie in a debate back in 2016, speaking about Palestinians like they were human, and I'd never seen that on American television. And I was like, wow, I love this brother. I love this brother. So he was first, and he's been great on this throughout. But what I wanted to talk about with you is now we're seeing so many allies to the point where, as you were pointing out, it's almost become a reverse litmus test for Democratic candidates. Before, the litmus test was, do you bow to Israel? And if you don't bow 200% and lie down on the ground and grovel, then you're an anti-Semite, and you're canceled, and you have no chance of winning, etc. Right? Now, people are getting asked, do you work for Israel? Right? Are you taking Israeli lobby money, and are you serving Israel or America? And it feels like it's becoming a reverse litmus test. That's awesome, because Amani, I don't know anyone, any group in America that is for American sovereignty more than Muslim Americans, because we feel the weight of a different government affecting us so much here in this country that we would love for America to be sovereign and free. Do you get that same sense that I'm getting from the left and independents and overall as the zeitgeist of America in politics?
Of course, that's exactly what we're witnessing happening right now. And what's entertaining about this political shift is that Israel and its allies are really shooting themselves in the foot, because the more that the power is shifting, the harder they're pulling all the levers that they have in order to hold on to whatever influence that they can. And it's become so obvious to people. And the American public resents that. I think in a lot of ways, the Israeli government is trying to control the American people. And that is so anti-American. And obviously, like you said, American Muslims, this is very clear to us because we're directly impacted by it. But we are witnessing an American awakening right now, an American renaissance, where the biggest gem of American culture is free speech. It's our First Amendment. And to watch a foreign government literally attack one of the most important tenets of American culture in order to pursue their own political interests on our dime, for that matter, that is really rubbing people the wrong way. And you don't have to be a Republican, you don't have to be a Democrat to understand that or feel that way. I think that is something that's been unifying everybody over the past 2 years.
Yeah, it feels like Americans are beginning to feel like Palestinians. They're beginning to feel like what an occupation does to you, right? And how
America is absolutely occupied. I think a lot of people are realizing that America is under an Israeli occupation right now, where we are having our media being owned by Israeli interests. We are witnessing our Ivy League system be gutted in order to stop protests from happening. We are arresting and deporting our own citizens that are outright criticizing Israel. And for that reason, I think it's just we're watching the downfall of what has been historically this unquestionable American-Israeli alliance. And all that Israel can really rely on right now is the system. I always call it like when finally Israel is really taking over the host body, right? And that's what we're witnessing taking place. And we have to start removing that influence one by one. And I think that's the precipice that we're on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. One more political thing here. Look, and we're not rose-colored glasses here. We also see the huge anti-Muslim propaganda and it working in a lot of ways, right? The attacks against Somali Americans and pretending like they're we found the fraud, the one people doing fraud in America. Are you kidding me? Look at the Pentagon, look at oil companies and defense contractors, etc. But the other encouraging trend, though, at the same time, and we've got all the negatives, but for the first time we have all these positives, right? Before we just had the negatives and none of the positives. The last positive is young Jewish Americans coming to our side and saying this isn't about race or ethnicity or religion. This is about right and wrong. and we were taught never again, and this is a genocide. And so, and now we're seeing, and we've covered it a bunch of times on the Young Turks, whether it's in videos or now they're writing articles about it, where older Jewish Americans are going, where did we go wrong? And it's amazing because they're saying, in essence, in my opinion, we taught our kids to be too moral. Like they're supposed to just favor Israel. They're not supposed to care about morality. Sorry, like you accidentally did a good job and you raised moral kids. And so are you encouraged by, younger Jewish Americans being so much more open-minded about this issue?
We've always had young Jewish Americans in our corner. It's just now becoming so many more because a lot of them are waking up and undoing a lot of this pro-genocide brainwashing that they've been indoctrinated into from a very early age. But absolutely, I mean, I was at the protests at Columbia University when they were taking place, and I witnessed with my own eyes those protests being led by the Jewish students, and the Jewish students being the biggest allies of enforcing a safe space for Muslim students and for students from other underrepresented and marginalized backgrounds. But it is really disappointing to watch just the way that they have to deal with so much hate and attack and doxing from their own community because of the fact that they dare to stand with the human rights of another people. But it is something that gives me a lot of hope. It is something that makes me really excited for the future. The thing that a lot of people really have to understand, especially about Israeli society, is that it is this machine that pumps out this genocidal mentality. That's the only way that this genocide against Palestinians in Gaza has been possible, is from birth. They are really taught and indoctrinated into this ideology that Palestinians are not human beings and we have to kill them before they kill us. And they're pretty much all like roaches that we have to get rid of. And it's really hard to break out of that. But that's the only way that you can watch this level of violence that surpasses the human imagination being committed in real time right before our eyes. And so we really need more Jewish people, especially Jewish Americans, because of the fact that Americans are so influential, to be at the forefront of denouncing that. And one question that always struck me is, after 9/11 happened, I grew up my entire life watching Muslims, anytime there's a terrorist attack and Muslims are being blamed for it, around the world, Muslims immediately jump to denouncing that violence, to distancing the Islamic faith from that violence, saying that it does not represent us, we're not a homogenous group. And I struggle to understand why more Jewish Americans don't feel that same compulsion to distance themselves from genocide and to denounce genocide and say that this does not represent our Jewish faith. And watching that happen, I mean, there is absolutely a rise in anti-Semitism that's indisputable. And a lot of it is because of the fact that we're watching this collusion between the Israeli government's political interests and the Jewish faith and using that as a cover. So I really hope that more Jewish Americans just rise up to being able to be vocal and to denounce this kind of violence that's being committed in their name, and really being those catalytic agents of change for our society in order for us to progress forward.
Yeah, Israel does the most amount of propaganda, actually, not to Americans in general, not even against Muslims. The number one propaganda they do is for Jewish Americans, saying, you're all gonna die if you don't support Israel. The whole world hates us and they're gonna kill us all. They're gonna kill us all, they're gonna kill us all, they're gonna kill us all. You have to kill them before they kill us. And they've got them believing that these Palestinians who have nothing left, who have lived literally in rubble in Gaza, are somehow the Nazis. No, they're the powerless. They're now living in camps, right? Okay, but we've talked about that enough. Now, before we go, tell me, Amani, about reactions you're getting. So when people see you and you don't necessarily fit what they had in their mind for what a Muslim woman is like, what are some of the reactions you get?
It differs. I think for myself personally, I've gotten hate across the board. I've gotten hate from super conservative Americans that say, oh, you're only this outspoken and empowered because you grew up in America or in the West. And then there are some, super strict Muslims that claim that we're reinventing Islam and that, strong women like me don't have a place within the faith and things like that, which is obviously not true. But for the most part, I think that, showing that I am a product of American culture. That's not something that you can strip away from me. It's literally intertwined into who I am. It really builds a bridge for people to be able to understand the Islamic faith better. It creates this accessible and unintimidating gateway for them to ask the questions that they need to ask, or to really undermine some of the stereotypes they might have about who Muslim women are. And the fact is, you can't put us in a box. Muslim women come from every single walk of life on the planet, every single lived experience, every single background, speak every language that you can think of. And it's just impossible to give a profile to who a Muslim woman is. And that's really the reason why we started Muslim Girls, to show the reflection of all of the different types of women that make up who we are. And it's really important for us to do that, because the first step towards genocide being possible is to categorize an entire group of people into one homogenous group, to put a label on them. That's how you can begin to dehumanize them. So when we take away from that, when we show that we're made up of individuals with our own wills, with our own choices, our own decisions in life, that really helps to not only change people's perception about Muslim women, but also just change the dynamic entirely of the way that we connect with one another.
100%. And what a lot of folks in America don't know, and I don't blame them for not knowing, they never got taught it, right? Is that there is no one Muslim culture. They were taught that there is one Muslim culture and it's like this radical, fundamentalist, extremist, etc. No, that's nonsense. No, there's Nigerian Muslims, Indonesian Muslims, Egyptian Muslims, let alone German, American, etc., etc. And Nigerian, Indonesian, and Egyptian cultures, and let alone Bangladesh, etc. They're all so different, so different. And
Cenk, I know that you grew up spending your weekends at East Brunswick Mall just like I did, and out at the strip malls eating the best pizza and bagels. And you're absolutely right. And not just in terms of racial background, but also in terms of just cultural upbringing. For us, my generation that's born and raised in the States, we have our own Muslim culture as well. And the next generation that comes after me is gonna have their own culture too. And it's just an ongoing evolution. And there's no reason for us to focus on our differences when we have this beautiful mosaic that's bringing us all together.
Amani, last thing, MuslimGirl.com. It's not just politics. What else is on there?
You got everything. You got lifestyle, fashion, beauty, culture, current events. But really, Muslim Girl doesn't tell you what Islam should be or how it's practiced. It tells you how it's experienced by the Muslim woman and the thousands of voices that make it up, the millions of readers that we have around the world that interact with our content. So really, it's a place to promote tolerance through the spirit of sisterhood. And I'm really proud that over half of our audience comes from non-Muslim backgrounds, women from diverse communities that find it as a gateway for us to come closer to one another, understand one another better, and to be our sister's keeper.
Yeah. So everybody check out MuslimGirl.com. And I'm just gonna leave you with this. To the point about how varied Muslims are across the world. Most Muslims do not look like me or Amani. The top 5 Muslim countries are Indonesia, Nigeria, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. So you're getting a totally different perspective here in America. And why do you only see mainly Arabs as Muslims when it's actually a minority of Muslims? Is because they happen to be Israel's neighbors, right? And so that's why.
Bingo.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right. Amani, you're awesome. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, everybody check out MuslimGirl.com.
Thanks so much, Cenk.
Thank you. All right, everybody stay here. We've got another interview for you guys. A new movie's out about Palestinians, and it is amazing, and it's winning like every award there is. We're gonna talk to the director. You don't wanna miss that. We'll be right back.